really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
Peace, everyone. Peace. Sorry about that blink. That was weird. I need to start getting like a crash soundbite or something, like how Charlemagne the God does or something, because I don't like the blankness in between. But welcome to season 5. And if you're watching this right now, by the time this comes out, you have already seen the first in-person interview by myself with Tony Grams, who is a staple of a local artist here in the New Haven area. I'm very, very fortunate for the Arts Council to be fiscally sponsoring me in those projects, and there's so much more to come. So I hope people really, really enjoy that episode. And now we're going to change the tune here for this episode, because we cover music, politics, and culture. And we're going to go more into the political and culture realm with a very great activist here that's for right now and based in the New England area, who has been phenomenally out in the streets doing all the good work that needs to be done. When people talk about, well, how are you going to make change? Well, I have somebody on that does that. So without further ado, Nika, everyone.
Damn. You gave me a lot of credit, Jamar. Damn.
Yeah, I think I said your name too long. It's Nika, not Nikita.
Okay.
Thank you for not correcting.
I think it cut out, so I didn't even hear you.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We've been talking about this, and I think this is a great opportunity to have you on, because it always happens over time. People say, "Oh, we talked about it and we missed it for a while." No, things happen for a reason, and this is a great time because it's we're getting down to the conversations about Middle Eastern identity and how people are always assuming here in the West how Middle Eastern people are, and Palestine is also in the news all over again in a negative light, while it's also seen in a positive light in the grassroots 24/7. And I know that you have always been a supporter of that. Were you also a part of the Palestinian group at Yale University as well too?
Yes,
that's where I met you. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. That was the first time rally in 2018.
Yeah, wow, 2018 seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it does yesterday also.
Well, how did you get started, in that work? If you like to give like a background on what got you so.
Yeah, I realize that I haven't been telling folks very honestly. A lot of people know that I'm Iranian, and then they're like, "Oh, so you just know radical politics because you're from Iran, and Iran is always in the news, so you might as well." And yeah, there's some truth to that. Anybody that grows up with a family history of bombing, of war, of revolution knows a lot. But I just want to be very clear that I did not know everything or know, or was even like myself as a person for the struggle of myself, my people, my family, I was not even aware really of what Palestine is and what it represents and the struggle for it. I think even when I was about like 12 or 13, I knew my grandmother would say something like, you know, I cried for my mother. I don't cry. I cry for my mother, cry for Iran, and I cry for Palestine. And that's about all I knew, you know? And then it wasn't until, honestly, later on having Arab friends and encounters with racism, that's a side, I think, that I grew up with for sure, you know?
Right.
But it wasn't until I learned about, you know, British history in the Levantine area and in Palestine that I started to realize and meeting other folks I grew up in an area that was like a lot of Iranians, and then the predominant Arab community was like 30 minutes away, you know? And so we were very proximal, but I have to be honest, like there were not a lot of Palestinians at my school. There weren't even a lot of Arab kids at my school. There were a lot more Iranians, right? And so it wasn't until I got to the East Coast and I went to school at Yale that I started to meet a lot of Arab students, but also encountered a lot of Arab folks in the community, right? And it wasn't long before I just had a lot of Palestinian friends and started to learn about the history and also understand just from their perspective what it's like to live in a country or be from a place that you can't return to a lot of times, that your like parents are like forever punished for. I met people in Jordan who literally couldn't work for the government because their parents had like fought in, you know, liberation groups. It wasn't until I started to have all these experiences that I think I realized exactly what was going on. And it wasn't until, the Great March of Return in 2018. And I don't think I even understood exactly the significance of the Great March of Return or, you know, what was going on. But I remember just being at Yale and knowing that there was no group for Palestine. None of the Muslim Student Association adjacent groups wanted to talk about Palestine. My Palestinian friends always felt like they couldn't really be honest about their position on it because they would be singled out, right? And I was like, I don't really care that there isn't a group. I just want to have a vigil. And I didn't want to have a vigil because I was so angry. I called it a speak out, which I've never called anything that again. But it really was basically us yelling in front of the library and, you know, where most of the protests are held, that this was genocide and it was awful. And that was in 2018, right? So that was, I think after that event and all the connections that I started to make just from that event, like I met so many people in the New Haven community that I would definitely not have met otherwise. And it was Palestine that brought us together, right?
Yeah.
It was Palestine that brought me together with so many like international solidarity movement folks. Started to bring me together with people that had just broad interests in like just liberation movements. And that is what made me really think that we always need a group that is talking about Palestine. We always, and I really mean that like in a very quickly, I realized that if you're doing that kind of organizing, you cannot just limit it to the sphere of wherever you are, whether that be a university, whether that be like just a city, right? You kind of have to build connections outside. It has to be rooted in the long-term struggle, right? So that's how I got started, to answer your question. I could go on more about it, but I got started in a university context, but from that first event that I planned, which the group had not even formed yet, right? The group were just the organizers of that one event. I learned that I can't, for my sake and for the sake of the movement, I can't just put all of my energy into the university Palestine organizing. And that's where I kind of got connected more broadly and where I continue now.
Yeah, I mean, and I liked how you mentioned that, like, the Palestinian connection is what helped um helped you meet so many great people and stuff like that. That's really dope, because that's how I felt about with the Bernie Sanders campaign, and turning into, oh wow, no wall, no ban, no wall rally.
Yeah.
That's when I met a lot of great activists here in New Haven. I think that was like 2016 or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
it literally changed. I definitely feel you on that, because it's like, what else would I have been doing if I didn't go to that rally?
Yeah.
What else? Well, who would I have met? I mean, literally, that rally has changed my whole interactions in life and stuff. And and I think that's really good, and it really helps. That's why I always say that everything happens for a reason. You find who you are when you find what you stand for. And I also like how you mentioned about that you didn't really know that much about Palestine, even during the right to return. I didn't either. I knew that they were occupied, but I didn't fully understood the full extent on how bad the occupation is.
Yeah.
Because here in America, we like to make jokes about how, oh, those Palestinians and Israelis are fighting again, like as if it's just like
Never
a,
ending.
a never ending, even opposing forces beef, as if everyone is equally powerful, and they just been going at each other 24/7, like comparison to like the Pakistani army versus India's army. Like, yes, they have air support, they got rockets, all that stuff. But then you start to understand that Palestinians don't have that type of equal force towards Israelis. They are occupied. They don't have an army. Hamas, they haven't have had an election in Gaza since 2006. The PLO is in the West Bank. They're separated by design, because Israel never wanted them to have their own type of like organization that brings together all Palestinians. That's the last thing they need. They need them to be fighting amongst each other, of course. So they did that, and it happened. They actually did fight amongst each other. You start seeing
Mm-hmm.
the children being killed unarmed 24/7, children being imprisoned 24/7, removal of homes, people getting kicked out of their damn homes when they have leases from that date back to the Ottoman fucking empire. Like, that's what opened my eyes when I started looking at the March of Return and seeing how important the March of Return was. And then I'm just like, this is not complicated. This should be exposed to the world way harder than it is now. Like, you got to be so crazy if you think that this is complicated.
For real.
Yeah. And I mean, so how have we shown up here in Connecticut? I mean, I have seen you guys out there. Unfortunately, I tried to go, but I couldn't find coverage because of my job. And shouts out to my job for not letting me find coverage. I asked every freaking person in the goddamn world. But how was that action? You guys did a few actions. Which ones have you made it to? Because I saw a few of them, and I'm just thinking about the cult manufacturing one, which I'm going to get into.
Yeah. So I just want to say that the Connecticut Palestine organizing scene has really taken off. I think there I'm just all of it's flashing before my eyes. So 2 years ago, during 2021, when Sheikh Jarrah was fighting for itself and all of Palestine rose up in support of it, a lot of groups in Connecticut came together and organized a protest of about 500 people that came from all around the state. And it was kind of incredible. Like we were chanting, and also it was in the middle of Yale graduation. We were totally disrupting Yale graduation. These cars,
God, I wish I was there.
Furious at us. I mean, like furious. And someone even was like, "There's an emergency." There was no emergency. But anyway, we got. I was brand new at organizing a rally that big, and I was one of the MCs. And we, after that event, which felt like so much power, built statewide, because it really wasn't just New Haven folks. It was like New Haven folks, Hartford folks, Manchester folks. I mean, I asked the guy who owns like a smoke shop down the street if he wants to bring, his people, and he brought people that I don't think I would have seen at a protest otherwise.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so because all of that happened, and then we worked with the mosques, and we worked with a lot of different Muslim communities outside of New Haven and more in North Connecticut. And it was because of all of that we called together a BDS coalition in Connecticut.
Nice.
And at our first meeting, and let me tell you, Jamar, it was rough. It was hard. It was the first time we were all in community with each other. It was like the first time we were even seeing, a lot of us knew each other. That's not true. It's not like we didn't all somewhat know, but you didn't know at least half the people in the group, right? Like there were people from UConn SJP there were people from AMP, American Muslims in Palestine, for Palestine. There were just so many different people there. And I think people where JVP was there. I mean, I could just go on. Palestine Museum, Tree of Life. Everybody was there, and it was kind of awkward. We didn't know how to run it. But it was this really important meeting. And I have to say, like, we all ended up doing our own things after that. We didn't really work together in coalition, but it was like the first formal meeting of all of these folks. And I feel like that groundwork, even though we didn't become like a full functioning coalition after that, still people were so inspired by just keeping tabs on each other and knowing each other and knowing that we could build that power if we needed it, that now 2 years down the line, I went to a coalition meeting, Jamar, and there were like 50 people, 60 people packed in that room. And there was like a whole function and order and like structure, and there was a steering committee, but then people just were running the meeting so smoothly. And that is what drew out 2,500 people to New Haven to protest for this, because and is what is behind the fact that we've been able to organize so many different actions and actually pull out numbers. It's because we've had that groundwork, and now everybody statewide that cares about Palestine and works on adjacent issues knows each other, and we're only building that. But it just reminds me that, like, without that groundwork, we wouldn't have been able to show out with so much power to each other's actions. It's not that we wouldn't have organized those actions. Those actions are happening everywhere, and people that care will organize actions, even if 20 people come out. That is an action. That is a really important action, right? Because those people are reckoning with the fact that they should take up space publicly, and they should be out here, and they should take out time, and they should disrupt. And so I just I'm myself, I'm like thick in it right now. I'm not even one of the core leaders of this coalition. This is like out of my hands at this point. I'm just like in awe of what they've been able to accomplish in just 2 years' time, without even like working really, in a very connected way, even a year before this, right? Like, this is spontaneous, but everybody is pulling so much weight right now. Everybody is showing up so much. I mean, people are just, for the first time, a lot of these core organizers are not alone. And that is being a fundamental difference in us being able to pull people out, engage more, and do multiple actions in a week. I mean, before we couldn't even fathom that,
Right.
And now just like it's the norm. It's exactly what we need, and we're fully ready for it, and we're just doing it.
And I want to give a shout out to the New Haven Independent that literally tried to say that it was less people than 2,500.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Did they even write an article about it?
I saw something. This was like a few weeks ago though, but Norm also mentioned it as well too. Norm Clement, who is an activist for people that are listening that are not from Connecticut. He's another great prominent activist that made a comment about how the New Haven Independent has put a smaller number. I think they put 250 instead of 2,500. Yeah. Well, it's owned by this guy who's pro-Israel. So I don't know if he's Jewish or not, or but it doesn't matter because a lot of Jewish people are against the Israeli government. So so it doesn't matter in that fact, but he's definitely a Zionist.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was just so shocked because they also tried to say that with the mass protest that happened in DC where it was like 300,000 people, and they try to say, oh, it was only like 30,000.
Really insanity.
Yeah, they're getting to the point where they're just blatantly lying now. It's like something that is just so incredible to me.
I mean, it is one thing to be complicit in a genocide when you aren't really writing about how lethal it is and how disgusting it's gotten.
Right.
And it's another thing to actually not be able to report numbers of people in the street. Like, I'm sorry, that's just a really basic thing. And if you can't even get close to the number of people it was and you're just blatantly underreporting it, then I don't care what you believe. You got to call people out on that because that's just
right.
Even by their own objectivity standards, like they can't even play by their own rules at this point.
And yeah, that's definitely how I felt. And I was also thinking about, so what do you think about the people that still think that you journalists have integrity? Like we just caught you in a lie, especially the people that probably still believes in CNN and all that nonsense. And they went to the rally and then they come back home and then they see CNN's lying about the numbers. They're just like, wait, why are y'all doing this? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like there has to be a point where we say like, this is wrong. This is just actually unacceptable.
Yeah. Why do you keep cutting out when I need to check that audio? Let
me check my Wi-Fi too. Oh, good. I'm connected.
Yeah. Well, it's whatever. But I can still hear you clearly. It's just that whenever I speak or something, I can't hear you when you're saying yeah or something. I don't know. But anyway, we'll figure that out. So for the cult manufacturing, the reason why I know that it was like 100 people there, but I think this is just as important because there's something that I saw that was mentioned about, this is coming after a lot of constituents have been calling their representatives and their senators. Let's talk about Richard Blumenthal, for instance. Let's talk about Rosa DeLaura, who wanted to fight to keep the Columbus statue up before this. I will never forget that shit. Chris Murphy.
I forgive her for that.
And I know people who work for Rosa DeLaura, and like I know they're good people. So I have a hard time trying to understand why the fuck they work for Rosa DeLaura. I do.
I know a lot of us ask these questions for camera.
Like she's not progressive, bro. If y'all thought she's progressive.
Oh man.
Oh man. Liberal shit. But anyway, the cult manufacturing, which is very, very like sad to hear that that company in Connecticut, progressive Connecticut, by the way, everybody loves to call us the state that has the best laws to protect LGBTQ people. I mean, even
who said that?
A lot of people have said that. I've had conversations and had people on and stuff like that. I mean, I would say that it's better than Florida, but it's still problematic. But yeah, we have Colt Manufacturing that made a deal to send 16,000 weapons to settlers in Israel to terrorize Palestinians in the West Bank. And so I knew about the violence was brewing higher in the West Bank. By the way, people that are just learning that the West Bank is violent right now. The West Bank has always been violent, and also I have to criticize the PLO because they have also contributed to being complicit with the violence that the IDF has put on the Palestinian people in the West Bank. So this is really nothing new, but it's also very scary learning that your backyard manufacturers are sending weapons to settlers to kill people as this whole bombardment of Gaza is happening. I mean, to up to date to this taping, we are seeing estimates of 11,000 people, but the Gaza Health Ministry hasn't been able to account for the newly departed because of a lot of issues with what's going on over there. But the Colt Manufacturing, were you a part of that rally? And what can you tell us that we need to move forward on understanding that our own backyard is contributing to being complicit to genocide?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of weapons manufacturers and a lot of defense industry giants are here. You have just a lot of, I think Raytheon has a plant here.
Yes, they do.
Raytheon, Sikorsky, Colt. What was the other one? PW. What is it?
Yeah, I know you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
So a lot of different weapons manufacturers are in Connecticut. I used to tutor kids when I was in school. And one time I had a kid that I was tutoring, and he was a native of Fairfield. And he was like, I remember editing his essays, and he was like, "Oh, I can't go to this school. They're too liberal." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Well, I want to work for Lockheed Martin, so I can't go there." And that's what really made me realize, like, this is a culture in Connecticut. Like, there is a whole culture of people. There's a lot of white people, but a lot of people trying to go into these defense jobs. And the thing is, some of them are very high paying. They are. Whether you're on the engineering side or whether you're just on the manufacturing side, right? Like production, the production line, it's pretty high paying. However, you're making weapons, right? Like, we're investing our jobs, our labor, right? Like, our time, the majority of our time is going towards producing weapons. And so there are a lot of people who are going to give a shit about this from the perspective of, this is my time and I don't want to spend it towards making weapons. And those people should also really care about the fact that these weapons these are all weapons of mass destruction. I don't understand why weapons of mass destruction are reserved for like Arab and Muslim countries. This is the core of the production of weapons of mass destruction, right? Because they can just drop 400 of them, right? They can make tiny things and then drop 400 of them, and not
Right.
call it, I don't know how. So we produce all these things. And there's this really great, quote by David Graeber that I'm going to paraphrase, but it basically says, you're either going to beg them to stop sending the guns, or you're going to try to stop them from sending the guns and wait for them to come and get you, and dare them to come and get you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the actions that we're seeing these days are coming out of this principle of we're not just going to beg our politicians to stop sending guns. We know they are deep in the business of it. They have been making money for generations on these deals. You know, the only reason they are elected is because they take money from lobbying groups, right? That make sure they're the kind of people who, even though they're progressive, even though they're liberal, they'll never question or hurt their bottom line of making sure that the defense industry has a place to stay in Connecticut.
Mm.
Jamar, I can't tell you how many, literally the place that I worked at and a climbing gym in New Haven, and I don't know how many other buildings used to be arms factories. You know, so there are so many, there's just such a long legacy of defense industry and making arms in Connecticut. And some of it has gone away, but a lot of it is well and alive. And it's going to be Connecticut's economy for a while until we, the people, stop it. And there's a lot
Yeah.
I saw in, you know, the workers were pissed, but I think a lot of them were probably had to be a little bit shaken up, right? By the fact that people showed up. People showed up to block them, try to block them from going to work. And they had to park at the Home Depot and then walk all the way to Cole. And they hear us, you know, going by and offering them a donut. But they were still, you know, more hostile towards us than we were ever towards them. And it was like this whole, I think it's a whole reckoning that I think we just needs to multiply. And then I think in numbers we can really confront, you know, kind of this culture of working in these industries and believing in these jobs when we could be investing in making things for each other that sustain us.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned the legacy of Connecticut with being weapons manufacturer, you just made me remember I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is a part of Fairfield County. And in Bridgeport, Connecticut, on the east side, which is the neighborhood I grew up in and played around and stuff, a lot of our water, we have little small streams and rivers there. They're poisoned with lead because of the cartridges, the bullets, whatever the fuck they did. So Remington Arms was a very, very big industry. In fact, Remington Arms literally produced a very, very good amount of the weapons that was used for World War II. That's how big they were back in those days. There was also riots with unionizing and people getting their heads cracked in. A lot of strong working class history there, and just like any other place. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, I remember sneaking into those buildings and finding like shotgun shells, finding ammunition around. I mean, clearly it's like can be used now because it's from like back in the day. I remember seeing these big bowls where they put like this molten lava type of stuff in to like create these weapons and all this stuff like that. They had large ones. Like we should have never even been up there. We would just go up and just see them and stuff like that. And they would tell there were stories about how people fell in and 24/7. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a history of being merchants of death here in Connecticut without realizing, because, you work another job that has nothing to do with it. You just see Sikorsky. You're just like, oh, yeah, that's Sikorsky. That's a good job. You might want to get in there, but you don't realize that you're contributing to the fucking problem that we have been talking about to the beginning with. And Sikorsky is in Stratford, another weapons manufacturer that's in Fairfield County. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the workers about being blocked, but I think this is an important statement, and you're seeing it in other places as well too, where people are literally blocking ships as well too, which is really, really good. What you said?
Blocking ships and shifts, both.
Yeah, right, basically. And I think that's really dope. I'm like, damn, like we're finding out where these weapons are, and we're disrupting their ability to distribute these weapons up. Like, that's epic. We're going into our senators and representatives' offices. We're giving them smoke, which they need to smoke. I mean, are you shocked by how complicit majority? I mean, for instance, when they censored Rashida Tlaib, not one white Democrat voted in her favor, which is insane. It was all people of color that was on her side. Insane.
I wasn't even paying attention, but thank you for paying attention to that, because that says a lot.
Right. And while Lindsey Graham is saying they all have to die, you got other representatives saying that they all have to die. I mean, it reminds me of, because I'm reading a book right now on the I can't think of the tribe right now. Jesus, I'm so mad I can't think of the tribe right now. But for people to look up later, the tribal leaders I'm reading about is Looking Glass and Chief Joseph. They were part of the 1800s when the Midwest was starting to get colonized. The rhetoric that the colonizers kept saying is that the only solution is for all the Indians to die. What are you hearing the Zionists say today? The only solution is for all the Arabs to die. This is the parallels of colonialism. And you're hearing this in Washington right now. They're literally saying the kids, all of them, they all have to die. Even the staffers had to come out and say, hey, no one's listening to you guys. So we're here to tell you that we receive all the calls and we know, but none of our bosses care. We just want to make sure you all know that. Like, are you shocked by all of a sudden, like, how, like, they love Israel all of a sudden? Like, they want to support Israel all of a sudden? Like,
No,
this is an anti-Semitic country, by the way, people. Like,
yeah, I got that wrong. If you ask people, well, like, why did they send Jews to Palestine and not to the U.S.? They'll be like, oh, because it's horrible here. They wouldn't want to come here. Wow. No, I'm not shocked. Somebody was like, did y'all know about AIPAC? And I'm like, I'm Iranian. Of course I know about AIPAC.
Everybody should know about AIPAC at this point.
Reason that's like, this kind of lobbying is so powerful, right? It's the reason my country is sanctioned to hell. It's the reason, like, literally my people are sanctioned to hell. It's the reason why all these Democrats get so much money, and why they never speak out about Palestine. And honestly, it is in their favor to be hush-hush about their support for Israel until they have to, until those lobbyists push them. And they're like, no, I need you to pledge support in these XYZ public ways. And obviously they always want to stand with Jewish people, but they're not going to stand for Israel until they have to stand for Israel. And I think right now we're seeing just how desperate the lobbyists are getting, that they're saying, if you don't make a public statement, if you say ceasefire, we are pulling the money. Because honestly, at this point, Jamar, I don't understand why a lot of them are not even able to say the word ceasefire. Right. Like, you have Trudeau basically almost saying the word ceasefire because he can't believe he can't say the word ceasefire.
He's been having a very rough year.
No, Trudeau has been having a rough life. But I mean, he's gross. But yeah. I think it speaks to how much, they themselves are being censored, right? I'm sure half these guys actually want a ceasefire so that they stop getting so much smoke, right? Right. But they can't, and that's the money talking. And I think I think a lot of people are reckoning with just how much money is in Democrats' pockets towards war, right? Not just Israel, but war, right? The bottom line of war. And it's the the defense industry. It's a lot of different industries. It's a lot of different interest groups, right? Like AIPAC isn't the defense industry, right? But it is very predominantly like in favor of doing anything by any means necessary for Israel. So
right.
People are reckoning with that, where a lot of this, deep centrist Democrat money is coming from, and why they themselves are tripping on their own words.
Yeah, I mean, I've been argued with about Joe Biden and the DNC being a war party. When I've been telling people this, I'm like, bro, they are literally the neocons that you should be worried about. Like, we all know about the neocons on the red side, but you be surprised about the Hillary Clintons, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't be at this point. You
Yeah.
really should not be. This is why I get mad because literally, in just the way that she has treated Middle Eastern people, and for them to have the fucking nerve to try to say that they care about Middle Eastern people when 24/7, you killed 1 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan. 1 million people, you killed them, murdered them, and then after you got away with it, you're like, I give a damn about Middle Eastern people. Wow,
We've
am I
known.
seeing something different?
Not. We've known. That's why I brought up like APAC. You don't have the luxury of not knowing. You don't have the luxury of being from the Middle East and living in this country and not knowing that any of those white people that become president are happy to go to war with your country, are
Right.
happy to out of you and call you terrorist while they're doing it, and
And
terrorist
people
sympathize.
will be like, well, they wasn't in office when that went on, but they voted for it.
Yeah.
Biden supported it.
Yeah.
He was down with Bush. And in fact, when he became vice president with Obama, they let the Yemen genocide happen so they could broker a deal with Saudi Arabia. They let Yemenese people get genocide.
Yes.
So
yes.
So don't tell me, whoever's listening, that the DNC has better ideas. just
No. No. In fact, I think it's like kind of dehumanizing and degrading to a lot of Muslim and Arab people that have these legacies of bombing. You know, they're like, don't shame me into not voting for Democrats, right? Because I know they're going to end up bombing one of us. If it's not Iranian, one of our neighbors. And I can't stand to see this. I can't stand you to be like, no, but my family is going to be impacted by XYZ if you don't vote for these people that are going to bomb your family. I'm like, make it make sense, y'all. I still understand this whole like, we need to pour our energy behind these people. I know we can't afford to have Republicans running this country. It's hell on earth. But I also can't stand this whole vitriolic like blame game among a lot of people of color, unfortunately. It's not even white people bullying us, you know? It's a lot of like other people of color who are like, I don't give a damn. You're gonna be bombed anyway, but like I need you to vote for this person. And that dehumanizing and degrading. Like, at least tell me it's bullshit. At least tell me that your position is bullshit and you still want me to vote for it. I will vote for it, you know? Trust me, my people have been voting, right? Because we also can't afford Trump, but we also know that we have to grit our teeth because we could get Hillary, you know? We could get Biden, because we could get what
and you're seeing exactly this is Biden.
And when it comes down to it, when Israel really wants him to, this is Biden. This is perfectly said.
But it's okay because it's rainbow bombs. The gays get to be a part of imperialism. You know, we could show up and show, hey, we're colonizers too.
You know how many so proud of being a part of the IDF. They're like, oh, I love, like, you wouldn't get to be a soldier in Gaza if you were a woman. And I'm just like, it's freaking terrifying, dude. It's freaking terrifying. Like, how much you can get people to fall in love with militarism being the 4th largest army in the world. Like, your country is based on pink washing, green washing, all of this festival washing, right? Like all of this shit washing, right? And then you still have a draft. You still have the entire country and a whole half of the diaspora, or I don't know how much of the diaspora, invested in militarily supporting this country, the borders of your country. And I'm just, wow, like the cost of maintenance is unbelievable.
While they claim to be victim, while they're bombing Lebanon, claiming Lebanon land, while they're bombing Syria, claiming Syrian land, it's like, you guys, you Zionists, you're all crazy. It's just that's the only way.
For real. They want to claim identity politics. They want to be like, no, Zionism is an identity. It's not an ideology. You know what another person said the other day? They said Hamas is an ideology, not Zionism. Zionism is an identity. And I'm just myself like, this is what it's become. Like Israel, Zionism has become an entire identity to people. I know anti-Zionist Israelis. I know people who are like literally are living. We are, and I love those people. I fucking organize with anti-Zionist Jews, but I can't understand the people that are like, Zionism is my identity. Like, this is not an ideology. It blows. Thankfully, I don't, I'm not in community with a lot of those people, but I do see that is the mainstream right now. I think a lot of people who are Jewish and are seeing their Jewish identity conflated with Zionism are having to ask themselves, like, what is Zionism? Like, what is my relationship to Israel?
Right.
And a lot of people like who are Iranian are having to ask themselves, what is my relationship to Israel? Right? Because Israel's existence also justifies the demonizing of my government, right? And whatever I have to say about my government, it has like really catastrophic results, And so we have to question also, what is our relationship to Zionism? When that is used as a lot of Zionists first on their list is not even destroy Hamas, it's destroy Iran. Destroy Iran, destroy the Islamic Republic of Iran, because without it, we wouldn't have Hamas, right? And so a lot of people are having to, every country that gets a lot of military support from Israel is having a question, what is my relationship to Zionism? What is my relationship to Israel?
Right.
And that's moving the needle a lot.
Right. Oh man, I just checked what time it is. I'm supposed to be somewhere. So we need to get you back on. Okay. And everybody else. That because this is a really good. We could go on, and I want to, but I can't right now, unfortunately. But this was really, really great. And
thank you.
I want to ask you one last question. How can people get involved that listen to this? What can they do? Do you know any organization? We know Jewish Voices for Peace, but any other organizations that you could name out that people can get in touch with, or just keep tabs with, follow, support?
Yes. So it really depends on what level of involvement you're looking for. Like if you're just looking for where the protests are, I think We Protect Us Connecticut CT, that's the tag on Instagram. I'm not sure if they're on Facebook. They're posting almost all of the actions that are happening in Connecticut related to Palestine. But then if you're trying to get involved in the organizing, like you want to be at the coalition meetings, which by the way, the coalition, I have to say this formally, the coalition is not organizing all of these events, right? It's just a meeting place for a lot of different groups. So if you're looking, I love to say, like, come to the coalition meeting if you want to see the who's who in this organizing. If you want to meet the faces and get to know people and build connections, even if you don't want to be committed to coming to the coalition all the time, you could just come and meet people and also see how this work is done, right? And a lot of like self-organizing has come out of these coalition meetings. So I really love that. I also just think that people should feel empowered to kind of like learn from one seasoned organizer, but then just start organizing in small groups. And it's incredible what a group of like 5 to 6, 7 to 10 people can do, even in just showing up to other protests, right? So like if one of you are linked to another group, then having that 10 people to come with you just multiplies us, right? So that, and then, feel free to get in touch with me. I mean, I don't know if you want to put any, like my socials, people can hit me up if they want to get involved in another way that I didn't really list. But yeah, or come to the protest and ask somebody next to you who looks like a semi-organizer who like might be involved in organizing the thing and say, how can I get involved? That's my favorite way of getting involved. But all these other things are super welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And I'll definitely add your IG. But definitely people just join the organization that supports Palestine and stand in solidarity with Palestine, because just like the Congo, just like Sudan, we need to make sure that we stand in solidarity with all oppressed people of the world, because if you don't, they will come for you next. That's literally how I see it. Especially being Black. We know apartheid here.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks very, very similar to what's going on in Israel.
Yeah.
When I look at what my Black ancestors went through.
The solidarity from Black folks moment will never be forgotten, Jamar. For me, I will never forget. They're up. It's unmatched. It's hard to say that because there are like millions of people pouring out into like Iraq and everywhere else, but I can still say that at least in the US, it is unmatched.
Yeah. And then that's why you see a lot of people of color out there in the streets, people. So let's join them. Well, I'll talk to you later, Nika. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is a wrap for season 5, episode 2. And everyone there, no matter where you are, have a good day, good night, or good morning.
Blank period, yeah. On my Black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?